not only can we not rule out changes in more Arab countries, for example, Syria looks like it's on the verge of a major change. Saudi Arabia is also showing signs of stress, and there is a number of other countries in the Middle East which may also, if you like, succumb to this wave of change. I think in the short term, this process is likely to be unsettling, particularly for the Western world. It's unrealistic to expect countries which have experienced authoritarianism or authoritarian government for decades to suddenly become instant democracies. And so we're heading for a very rocky transitional period. We're seeing this in Egypt, and some of the fears in the West and sometimes in countries like Israel, which is of course located in the Middle East, is that we may see the proliferation of Islamist movements. There's also concerns that in some Arab countries, such as Egypt, the position of Christian minorities, the Coptic Christians, is becoming more uncertain as the old predictable authoritarian regime like of Mubarak gives way to a new fluid political arrangements.
Well, should Western countries be getting involved in the democratic process, or should we be staying well out?
I think we should be interested in what's going on and lending assistance where it's required and where it's possible to make a positive difference. I think there's a danger of the Western world getting too involved in trying to reorganize these societies, because many people in the Middle East have memories of past European penetration of the area, and many people in the region, particularly in the Arab world, believe the United States in the more recent period has also interfered at their expense sometimes. But we are in a new situation now, and in the short term I think the consequences are going to be unsettling for the reasons we've just gone through. There are also presenting major challenges to US foreign policy, because for much of the last few decades, American foreign policy has been based on a very solid, very close relationship with Israel, its strategic partner. And it did so on the grounds that Israel was the only democracy in the region. It was a country which was besieged by an oasis of dictatorship. But as that dictatorship recedes, that's creating pressures for America to be more even-handed in its policy towards a territorial dispute, such as the Palestinian dispute between the Israelis and the Palestinians.
Well, is it likely that conditions will get worse before they get better? Can the transition to democracy really be smooth? Because certainly in Libya we're seeing clashes now between the rebel groups that a short while ago worked together to overthrow Colonel Gaddafi.
Well, my crystal ball is no better than anyone else's, but it seems to me that we're certainly in for a period of transitional turbulence, and many people did predict there would be, at least in the short term, violence in Libya after the fall of Gaddafi. This is almost a predictable scenario, that where you have power concentrated in one family so strongly that the contenders, which although nominally committed to democracies, don't really understand its norms, and therefore they often adopt the norms of the previous regime to try to pursue their ambitions. I think, however, there's no going back. I don't think there'll be a reversion to full-blown dictatorship unless there is, if you like, the deterioration in the living standards of most of the people in the country concerned.
Well, what about those countries which remain in the middle of unrest, such as Syria? What will we see happen there, do you think, next year?
I personally believe that the Syrian regime is now engaged in a grim end game. That is to say that it won't recover, and what we're seeing is a bit of a bloodbath at the moment as the protests mount. And it's also evident that many of what started off as peaceful protesters are now taking up arms, because they realise that peaceful protests do not, in their eyes, seem to get anywhere. They're not productive. And the danger, of course, people taking up arms and having a civil war is that it lends legitimacy to the very regime they want to overthrow. I would not be surprised to see the Assad regime either forced to stand down through international pressure, or simply increasingly finding itself on the wrong end of the violence, which is escalating. A lot of the quite a few members of the Syrian army are now defecting and using their weapons against the regime they're previously servicing. So we are seeing a major shift occur in Syria.